Namaste everyone, welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita. We are starting with chapter 6 and in this particular case it is a special offering from an Advaita perspective, very methodology. So if you want replays of the earlier rooms, you can access them in Clubhouse or in the link shared in the chat. There's a channel called Advaita Retold on YouTube where all these talks are well cataloged. You can also access them in two other links shared in the chat. One is Apple Podcast and Spotify. As a companion reading material, there's a book published by Artemisia, which is based on Bindoji's insights into Advaita, which is available on Amazon. For housekeeping, I will close the chat and hand raising. And after an hour of Bindoji's class, we will open up those channels for any question, answers, or clarifications. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and Hari Om to all of you. My invocations. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vanshirashibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Slokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarutaha Stunnandi Divyai Stavai Vedai Sangapadakrammo Parishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastitadadgatena manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Oh. Towards the end of the 5th chapter, we saw Krishna introducing us to meditation, dhyana. Sparshan kritva bahit bahyan chakshucha eva andare bhruv. Pranapano samau kritva nasabhyandara charino. Yadendriya mano buddhi muni moksha parayanaha. Vigada ichchavaya krodha yaha sada mukta eva saha. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Suhridam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati. Now these 3 verses in the 5th chapter end was a deviation from the previous topic which was introduced in the 5th chapter, namely the sannyasa yoga and the jnana aspect of Brahma Nirvana. Now why did Krishna introduce meditation after jnana? So we need to see the link between the two. So these verses have significance in the context of chapter 6. Chapter 6 opens precisely by clearing a potential confusion left by the last 3 verses of the 5th chapter, which praises both sannyasa and karma yoga. In the chapter verse 5 is fully on sannyasa and karma yoga. And toward the end, 3 verses, he introduced the dhyana yoga. A student might ask, are these 2 different paths for 2 different persons? Which is the sannyasa and karma yoga? So the complete chapter 6 is handling this question. Especially the verse number 1 dissolves the apparent duality. The true karma yoga is a interior sannyasa, not the bahiranga. The chapter then ascends through the disciplines of dhyana and samadhi towards atma darshana towards the end of the 6th chapter. Shankaracharya will consistently read that these ascent through dhyana and samadhi toward the atma darshana as culminating in the recognition that the meditator, the meditation and the meditated are not different from the self, the Brahman. Now there is a big introduction before the 6th chapter in the Bhashya of Shankaracharya. That is mainly to take on the opposition and the doubts which can come up after the first 5 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. So Shankaracharya Bhashya introduces the bridge between chapter 5 and 6, that is between the Karma Yoga and Sannyasa and the Dhyana Yoga. It's also known as Atma Samyama Yoga. It sets up a crucial distinction between the previous verse where karma as a bahiranga sadhana or external auxiliary practice and dhyana as a direct means to samyak darshana. While the karma is at the sadhana level, dhyana takes us closer to the aparokshanubhuti. So there is a bridge or a transition or a setu at the close of chapter 5 where the verses which I read now, sparshan bahya kritva bhit, etc. It was in a Sutra Bhuda teaching of Dhyana Yoga in a precise, in a what you call crisp and concise way. What is a dhyana? Which at the end, Mam Richati becomes one with me or abides in the self. That is how the 3 verses ended. So therefore the Dhyana Yoga leading to the knowledge is indicated by Krishna in the 3 verses. So Shankaracharya says that the chapter 6 is presented as an elaboration of these 3 verses, which is in the form of vritti sthaniya, like a sutra or a vritti or a seed. Since karma is a bahiranga to dhyana yoga, karma is praised as necessary practice for the qualified householders as per the Vedic rituals, etc. But that is only until he becomes capable of ascending to yoga. Yoga, we have studied the term yoga in the previous chapters. That preparation is making him capable to be a yogi, and that karmas are not for the life sustenance. It is for the purpose of the yoga preparation. Therefore, the Purva Paksha or the opposition raises an objection. Should karma be lifelong? Because Veda says that ya jivanam agnihotram kuryat. As long as there is life in the body, agnihotram has to be done. If the scripture enjoins karma, then that way. Why impose this ceiling that until the accession to yoga? Krishna says that, until the accession of yoga. So the answer given by the Siddhanti or Advaitin is that the Arurukshu, Aruda distinction, which is being given in the third verse, Arurukshor Muner Yogam Karma Karanam Uchyate. That is the verse. Specifically says that karma is the means for one who wishes to ascend. The word Arurukshu, Aruda means climb. Arurukshu means one who desires to climb or ascend. One who has ascended is an Aruda. Arudum Ichha Arurukshu. One who has a desire to do it. But one who has ascended, he is called an Aruda. Shama Karanam Uchyate. Shama or the tranquility, quietude or peace alone is the means. If both karma and shama are meant as obligatory for both the types indiscriminately, this very distinction given in the verse by Krishna would have been absurd or pointless, anarthaka. Not only that, Shankaracharya in the preface says that there is a counter reading. Someone might argue that the two terms differ to two different classes of people. Some are perpetual arurukshos, desiring to ascend into yoga. Others are perpetual arudas. By birth itself, they are arudas. Aruda means they have attained the yoga. Shankaracharya rejects this. The text says, Tasya eva means to the very same person and repeats yoga as yogarudasya, meaning the same individual who was once an arurukshu, who wanted to ascend into yoga, later becomes a yogi, arudha. And for him alone, now, shama becomes means, not karma. Hence, karma is not obligatory for lifetime for anyone who has reached the yoga state or aruda state. We all know that Shankaracharya was very vehement those days because the Vaidika dharma in India those days had become corrupted, and the Purohitas or the Brahmins, using the terms in the Veda and misinterpreting the meaning of them, insisted that the karma should be done till the end of the life. Aya jivanam agnihotram kuryat. Because of this, they were perpetually employed and they were able to do the yagas and, Agnihotra, etc. for the purpose. And their survival depended upon that. And because of this very reason is why the other religions and other philosophies like Bauddha and Jaina became very popular and was, becoming almost like the most successful philosophies. Because those who were karma content, those who were insisting on karma, misinterpreted the meaning of Gita, Upanishad and Vedas, etc. for their personal benefit. So Shankaracharya had a Herculean task remaining within the Vedic system. He had to break the, blind adherence to karma kanda, making the meaning of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita clearer, that there are distinctions between the nature of karma, yoga and jnana. So the question then put by these karma kandins were, what happens if a person want to become a yogi and he falls, or he is not successful? So he has left karma after having tried to become a yogi, and then the path of yoga, he falls from the path because he is not able to successfully do that. Yoga brashta is the word used by Krishna. So the argument of a yoga brashta, if a yogi who has fallen, what happens? If karma were obligatory even for the yoga practicing householder throughout life, then a person who falls from the yoga brashta, that is explained in the 37th and 38th verse, toward the end of the chapter 6, would still reap the fruits of the ongoing karma, making the very anxiety about his destruction of his efforts incoherent. Any action performed, whether kamya or nitya, kamya karma means desire driven, nitya means obligatory, necessarily yields its own results. Moksha itself being eternal, hence not something produced by an act. Therefore, nitya and naimitika karmas, or the kamya karmas, are necessarily within the realm of avidya and yields its own result within as long as jnana does not take place. Whereas a jnana is moksha itself, which is eternal. Nitya karma being Vedically enjoyed must bear fruit, or Veda would become purposeless. So the fear of loss on both counts, that is, fallen from karma and fallen from yoga, presupposes that the karma has ceased for such a person, which Shankaracharya refutes. The karma for a yogi or a jnani continues without kartrutva, bhoktrutva. This we have seen in the previous chapters. So the two further objections and their refutations are given in the Bhashya. Objection is that action performed renouncing it in Ishvara does not yield the fruit for the agent. Listen carefully. Action performed by Ishvararpana karma does not yield fruit for those who are doing the karma. Advaiti says that such renunciation is actually the cause of even greater fruit, because the renouncing it in Ishvara and the action is being done is giving rise to fruit befitting to Ishvara. But the greater fruit which is being produced by that action should not be desired by the doer, by the agent. That aspect they are forgetting about it. Another objection is that such renunciation in Ishvara aims at moksha alone is combined with yoga, and hence the fear of destruction for the one who falls from that yoga is legitimate. That is the objection. And it is being refuted. No. Because in the 10th verse, yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitaha ekaki yata chittatma nirashir parigraha. Solitary, controlled mind and the self, free of craving and possession, etc., is what is being given by the verse 610. And followed by that in the up to the 14th verse, abiding in the brahmachari's vow, that is prashantatma vigadabir brahmachari vratai stitaha, explicitly enjoins karma sannyasa, that is renunciation of action itself, which is incompatible with continued householder's life. Therefore, no room here for assistance of the family or the wife in karma, nor is without craving of possession befitting a householder. Therefore, the karma is not a karma sannyasa in such a case. Also, the very question of one who has fallen from both wouldn't make a sense if he is still practicing as a householder, because the actions of the householder will definitely yield its own result. On the term anashrita, the Bhashya says that, does it deny the sannyasa to the fireless renunciate, niragni? Someone who might claim that, the first verse makes only the karmin a true sannyasi, thereby implicitly denying the status of niragni, or without fireless this thing, akriyaha, actionless renunciate. That is denying the fourth ashrama altogether. That is sannyasa ashrama is denied by that action. Shankaracharya firmly rejects this. The statement's purpose is only to praise renunciation of fruit desire regarding action, karma being auxiliary to dhyana yoga, not to redefine sannyasa itself. See, the terms in the dhyana yoga will look like it is giving rise to sannyasa. But sannyasa itself is different. A single statement cannot simultaneously praise the renunciation of the fruits in action and prohibit the fourth ashrama. That is, continuing to do the action without the fruits of action, and sannyasa. Both are different. Shankaracharya says the Lord Krishna cannot be prohibiting the well-established Paramartha Sannyasa, that is the fourth ashrama, of the fireless, actionless renunciate, which is enjoyed through Sriti, Smriti, Purana, Itihasa and Yoga Shastra. This also contradicts Krishna's own statements elsewhere praising the complete renunciation. For example, in the 5th chapter, 13th mantra, 13th sloka, he said, mentally renunciation of the neither acting nor causing to, na karayan, manasi sannyasa, which he said that. In the following 12th chapter, 19th verse also, he says that Mauni Tanusta Anikta. And the second chapter he said, desireless and wandering in the case of what you call Sthita Prajna. In the 16th verse of 12th chapter also, Sarvaramba Parityagi, he is describing that also. So all these statements shows the praising of a complete sannyasa. Krishna is sannyasa, he is different from dhyana yoga. So the conclusion is that the Muni who is still in an Arurukshu means desiring to enter yoga of dhyana, having entered the householder's life, should continuously perform the obligatory rites like Agnihotra without the desire of the fruits. Phala nirapeksham. Such karma serves as the means to ascend in dhyana yoga, precisely through the sattva shuddhi, purification of the mind. It is this very person who is praised as a sannyasi cha yogi cha. He is not given as a sannyasi. He is, even though called a sannyasi, he is a yogi more than a sannyasi. He is both a renunciate and a yogi. Not because he has literally renounced action, because he is continuing to do the action without the desire for their fruits, but because he has renounced the attachment to the fruits of while practicing it. So this is the synopsis or summary of the introductory bhashya to the 6th chapter by Shankaracharya. There is a doctrinal significance to that which bhashya also. This bhashya is a foundational to Shankaracharya's siddhanta of sadhana karma. Karma yoga as sattva shuddhi means a gateway by purification, not itself as a means to moksha. Moksha is only through jnana. Strictly graded and the time-bound Arurukshu, or the one who is desire of the yogi stage, giving way entirely to sama or their dhyana upon the yoga rudutta. He has ascended to the yoga state and finally to the jnana alone. So the three are the stages, the karma and the jnana occupying a non-overlapping competency or adhikari veda, where the stages of karma, karma phala tyaga, yoga ruda, yogi, and sattva shuddhi, after that the jnana. So the karma jnana samuchaya is not possible, which is as per Shankaracharya. These are all stages. So you cannot continue to do the Agnihotra with the fruits of action desired and try to become a yogi and a yoga ruda. Therefore, the Paramartha Sannyasa at the 4th stage ashrama is entirely distinct from the karma phala tyaga. The karma phala tyaga and the actual sannyasa, renunciation, are entirely different. Now we'll enter the first verse of 6th chapter. Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir cha akriyaha. The prose order is that yaha karma phalam anashrita karyam karma karotihi saha sannyasi cha yogi bhavati saha na niragnir na cha akriyaha. Krishna is very categorically saying this. He who, without taking resort to the fruits of action, performs the duty enjoined act, he is both a sannyasi and a yogi. He is a renunciant and a yogi. Don't confuse him to the one who has merely abandoned the rituals or actions, who pretend to be a sannyasi by renouncing his duties of a householder and Agni, etc. Nor the one who has simply given up action. Mithyacharasa uchyate, Krishna has said earlier. He pretends to be inactive, but mentally he is craving for his desires. So he is simply given up the action, but neither has he renounced the action, nor he has, achieved the state of inactivity, naishkarmya. So each word, if we look at it, anashritaha, na ashritaha, means one who has not taken refuge, not depending upon, or what? Karma phalam, the fruit of action, the object of anashritaha. Anashrita karma phalam means one who has not taken refuge in the fruits of action or not depending upon the fruits of action. Karyam, that which ought to be done, or the duty enjoined action. It's a predicative used for the next word, which is called action, karma. Nitya naimittika karma, prescribed forms of actions. Karoti means performs or does. So anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha is the first part of it. He performs nitya naimittika karma, which ought to be done, but has not taken refuge in the fruit of action. That is the yaha karma karoti, karyam karma karoti, anashrita karma phalam, by not taking refuge in the fruit. Anashrita means not taking refuge in the karma phalam. Who is he? Sa sannyasi cha yogi cha. Such a person, he is a sannyasi, a renunciant, and yogi cha. He is also a yogi and a sannyasi. But at the same time, Krishna is refuting na niragnir cha akriyaha. Na niragni. One without doing fire. Without fire means he who has abandoned the Vedic Agni rituals. A mere external apparent renunciation. He has renounced the yoga, karma, and akriyaha, one without action, inaction, mere, abandoning of duty. So, Krishna defines sannyasi and yogi not as external marks, but by inner disposition, antakarana vritti. Karma bala tyaga as a criterion. For sannyasa is not abandonment of physical implements of action, like Agnihotra, etc. But the internal appropriation of the fruits of action. Karma phale anadhikara. The operative word anashrita, not leaning upon or mentally resting on in the form of fruits of action. Ashraya. This is precisely Gita's teaching, ma phaleshu katajana, which we saw it in the second chapter 47 verse. Ma phale Arjuna ma phaleshu katajana. That ma phaleshu katajana is exactly what is mentioned here as anashrita karma phalam. Now what is karyam karma? The duty as karma. To be taken as a upasana. The qualifier karyam is important to Shankaracharya. It is not an arbitrary action which is being told, karyam. It is vidiyuktam karma, actions enjoyed by the Shastra as one's swadharma. Action performed in the spirit of Ishwararpana, offered to the Lord, without the agency and without appropriating the result. The inner attitude transforms mere karma into yoga. Apparently, outwardly, he is engaged in action. Internally, he is neither the karta nor the bhokta. Krishna is rejecting the external renunciation. Na niragni. Identification, sannyasa with outward act of extinguishing, doing the Agnihotra, etc. A person may have abandoned the actual rituals and yet to be a sannyasi only by name if he is internally clinging to the fruits of action of. And this is where Shankaracharya characterizes the Antakarana Shuddhi orientation of the external form of counts without the inner freedom. This aspect is to be seen very important. It is not the future actions and the fruits of future actions which is being sannyasa or which is being abandoned or sannyasya, renunciated. Krishna, when he mentions na niragni, all the fruits of action which you have performed previously, where the fruits of action has not yet resulted, included in it. So today, in the modern world, we are definitely not doing Agnihotra, etc. But we all have having done actions in our life where the fruits of actions are yet to be fructified. So when he used the word niragni, na cha akriya, these two words when he used, it is more appropriate to us in the modern world. We have done so many actions in our life where we are expecting the results of those actions. Basically, leading to the egoistic individuality that I am an engineer, I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a dancer, I am a singer. All those things which we have acquired in our life, the fruits of which are yet to be fructified. And abandoning the future action, na akriya. Future, we refuse to act where our swadharma, our duties are to be performed. We are abandoning that also. So in both ways, where our fruits of actions are expected, plus we are becoming inactive in the name of becoming a sannyasi or a tyagi, or in the name of karma phala tyaga, which is in the form of a tamas, karma yoga bhaumika, is what Shankaracharya says that it's a pramada, a lazy, inactive person who simply stops acting. He is not a yogi. Shankaracharya does not endorse cessation of prescribed duties, the adhikari. Inaction born of inertia, tamas, is not renunciation. So, both Krishna and the Bhashya of Shankaracharya is very clearly telling us one thing. The sadhana prakarana, or the yoga renunciation which is being explained, going to be explained in this 6th chapter, addresses the mumukshu who is still in karma kanda, orientation, but being directed inward. Therefore, the teaching has 3 inflections from the Advaitic point of view. The phalatyaga as an antaranga kshaya, which leads to ahankara, nasha. Clinging to the fruits, karma phala ashraya, is fundamentally an insertion of the doer entity. Aham karomi mama phalam, I will do and this is my fruit of action. The fruit desire presupposes the ego as the separate entity entitled to the results of past actions. So when Krishna said anashrita karma phalam, thus is a direct attack on kartrutva ahankara or abhimana, the conceit of doership. Bhokta Bhogyam Bhoga, which is the state under which these actions are being done, makes one to cling to phala and entrench oneself in the Bhokta position. Only when you become anashrita, we start dismantling that entrenchment of doer enjoyership and the objects of enjoyment, the Tripudi, Bhokta, Bhogyam, Bhoga, etc. So when we are anashrita karmaphalam, we are dismantling our ego entity who earlier was enjoying as a bhokta, doing it as a bhogyam available, looking at through the indriya, bahya sparshan, bhoga. This is what the beginning of the bahyan sparshan bahyan, bahikritva, when Krishna said in the previous chapter, end towards. That is the means through which we can get out of the entrenchment of the tripudi of bhogya, bhokta, bhoga. The second aspect is karyam karma as a nivritti within pravritti. Shankaracharya's genius mind here is now showing nivritti, renunciation is, or the inner withdrawal, need not await external ashrama change. That is from the grihasthashrama to vanaprastha to sannyasa. Need not wait for the sannyasa ashrama to arrive. He says, karyam karma, when we do, that is perform that duties which are being ordained but to us, need not wait for the sannyasa to happen. This can be done with the phalatyaga and the ishwararpana. The very act of pravritti, of engagement, while engaged in action, inwardly we can work towards nivritti, freedom from action. This prefigures the Advaitic teaching that the andakarana can be established in the Brahma Bhava or the Atma Bhava, while body and its instruments acts, basically becoming a sakshi, untouched by the activities. Therefore, sannyasa is an inner station, not an outer form. Negations, niragni, na akriyaha, together defines the sannyasa as an interior disposition of non-attachment, andasthiti, rather than an external vesha, grab, or the ochre robe which we achieved to sannyasa, or an ashrama. This resonates with the same teaching in the Brihadaranya also. Brahmavid Varaha, Uttamadhikari, transcends even the ashrama restrictions, abiding as witness self alone. As abiding as the sakshi or the witness alone, he acts as if he is in action This is what Krishna wants Arjuna to understand. He can be the warrior in the war, doing his duty of a Kshatriya for the upliftment of Dharma. Yet, internally, he can be a sannyasi, neither as a doer nor as an enjoyer of the fruits of action. Karma phala trishna rahita ityartha. He is not attached, anashrita karma phala. Karma phala means karmanam phalam karma phala. Tad anashritaha karma phala Krishna rahita. This is what Krishna is telling, which Shankaracharya has explained in his Bhashya. I am not going to the second verse today because which says that Krishna is addressing Arjuna directly, saying that Yam sanyasam iti prahur yogam tam viddhi pandava nahis asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. This is that he is saying to Arjuna, know that the very thing which the wise calls as sannyasa to be yoga. For no one whosoever becomes a yogi without having renounced sankalpa. The word sankalpa has to be explained in detail, and it is not a subject which can be covered in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. So I will stop here. We'll take up if there is any question. Otherwise, we can meet tomorrow to discuss the second verse, which is a very important verse. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mindoji. We've opened the chat and hand raising. I think Venkatji is coming up. Namaste, Venkatji.
Sorry, Hari Om Binduji. Namaste, Prakash.
Hari Om.
Binduji, now this verse seems to equate now sannyasa and yoga as same. That renunciation is a critical shift.
Yes.
That's the summary, right, Binduji?
Yes. It is the karma, karyam karma, which is the ordained duty of our swadharmas, which we are supposed to be doing. While remaining in that, how we can ascend to a yoga state, which is by karma phala tyaga, becomes the sannyasa as per the definition given by Krishna. So we have to see that the karma, the yoga and the sannyasa as a process, sadhana, and resulting in the antaranga shuddhi or the inner purity, where the sannyasa becomes our state of jnana through the path of karma and yoga. So that inner sharpening or honing or preparing the inner nature of our sankalpa, which we'll be discussing tomorrow, to make a transition from karma yoga to karma yoga to karma sannyasa, to yoga avastha, and to ultimately to jnana.
Yes, Bandaji. The Dhyana Yoga, the introduction you gave,
Yes.
it is a antaranga. It's not a bahiranga. The inner
No. It's
stage.
an andaranga. Yes.
So now we are moving into inner stage from outer
Yes.
stage
Right.
from the prior chapters.
Right. Prior
I think that,
chapters were talking about karma, karma yoga, karma sannyasa, etc. No?
okay. Okay. I think this is a good stage,
Okay.
Bandaji. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Bandaji. We'll wait for
Bindoji, with this, the first verse
Hmm.
is a deep contemplation of the sannyas, beginning of the sannyasa with yoga, right?
Yes. How to move to actual sannyasa
Yeah.
through yoga. And
Yes.
dhyana yoga comes as a sadhana or antaranga sadhana for that.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Kritarth.
Good morning, sir. So,
Morning.
as talking about this renunciation part, there is a
Hmm.
kind of a sankalpa in that, and there is a desire of outcome of some sort of mm, a kind of a achievement over there. So that's how
Hmm.
renunciation is a kind of a disqualified or in Dhyana Yoga.
No, what you have understood is wrong. The thing is that the external activities renunciation
Hmm.
and internally engaged in the desires of fruits of action is a a self-deceiving sannyasa. It is not the actual sannyasa. The actual sannyasa is not external, but an internal renunciation to the fruits of action. That is the real sannyasa. Anashrita karma phalam.
Get it? Being untouched.
Right. Yes.
And okay.
Okay.
And one okay. So, all these, chapter fourth, fifth, chapter third, fourth, fifth, are this kind of a okay, like first as of doing some karma, doing action in order to achieve something. So there is a first action, then there is a kind of a yoga, as you mentioned this term, which is aruksha,
Aru,
which is through physical action. First, as of like doing meditation or doing some sort of a postures or kind
no,
of a.
Pratarth, you understand this properly.
Mm,
The third, fourth, and fifth chapter are progression from defining what is karma. The
mm,
second one, fourth chapter was what is karma yoga and
mm.
what is the karma sannyasa in the fifth chapter. Now, sannyasa having been defined in the fifth chapter, the confusion will arise whether the sannyasa is talking about the external sannyasa or the sannyasa
Mm.
ashrama, which is being seen as the existing practice of those days. But in today's thing, that sannyasa ashrama has no relevance because there are no brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa in today's life, in the modern world. So don't
Mm.
confuse between those
Get
activities
it,
now.
get it.
So what is to be understood is to be from the point of view of our duties and how the duties can be converted into a yogic state of karma sannyasa and which will help us to elevate ourselves into the renunciation, what is not externally seen as the ochre robe and the going away from home or the duties, etc. While remaining in the duty, engaged in the actions, you can be a yogi and a sannyasi. Sannyasi cha, yogi cha. That is what is going to be explained in the chapter 6, which will be dealt in detail.
So removing the structural ambiguity of this external world in a way.
No, the external world
As of
will continue to be there.
Yeah, that will be there as of like a transaction or appearances. But this structural ambiguity, like I'm doing some sort of a practice or kind of doing some sort of a dhyana or maybe listening to something. So it's just a kind of a there's some sort of a transaction over there. So this structural ambiguity has been removed. And actually, I wanted to present your own. You asked me a question like, can I see itself like, without a mirror? So I had this intuition, like actually the seeing out of an objective part is I'm not talking about that maybe, but the indifference of that question in itself, because in question there was there was not a difference over there, but as I perceived earlier, there was a kind of a difference which was there. Like even
that question, Krita, that question to you was to show that there is something called Atmashraya dosha. That is, the finger touching itself, the eye seeing itself is impossible, because that is, when you are that, you cannot become that. Right?
Right.
That is what is called the Atmashraya dosha, which I wanted you to see, to understand that. That question is different and what is being discussed is different. We'll continue that tomorrow onwards in the 6th chapter. Okay? Thank you. Okay, Prakash, we can stop. Right.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bindoji. So we'll continue with verse 2 of chapter 6 tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. IST. So if you want to catch up on the replay and do the Shravana Manana so that you will have this verse 1 very clear and you can follow through to verse 2, please access the replay in Clubhouse. The other rooms are available on YouTube and the other links shared in the chat. And our schedule, again, just a reminder, since we are starting on a new chapter, is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6:30 a.m. IST. And as Bindoji in the beginning of the class said, it's about 30 verses. So we can expect a few more rooms, up to 10 or 12 rooms, after which Bindoji is going to take up an Upanishad. So with that reminder, thank you everyone for coming, and special thanks to Bindoji for offering this meticulous process of Shravana Manana. Over to you, Bindoji, to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Kritat. And thank you all of you for listening. We'll resume tomorrow morning, same time. Till then, have a good day. Hari Om.
Have a good day.